Yeah, hello. I can't even see myself. Hello. Okay. Uh, okay. No. Can you hear me? Okay. No, I can't hear you. No, I can't hear you, but I can't hear you. I can hear you now. Uh,
Oh, wow.
yes, I can hear
I
you now.
want
I
to be
can hear you.
sure that all I had said before was even heard by the audience. I'm coming. Just give me a minute. Let me be sure of something.
All right.
So apparently, I had been saying some
Mhm.
things earlier and no one could
All
hear
right.
me. I didn't even know.
Are you
So
serious?
I have to go over, I'm serious. I have to go over it again. I'm glad that I even got to find out now, not later in the
All right.
event. Anyway, I was saying that this event is being hosted by African Creative Hub under IP Business Capital. And the IP Business Capital is a business advisory firm that provides cutting edge IP solutions to African institutions. And then the African Creative Hub, as an initiative of this firm, has the mission to empower African creative entrepreneurs with the needed capacity, both technical and soft, to tell authentic African stories. The
Hello.
African Creative
All right.
Hub also has a community where we network, we collaborate, we have fun too, we learn, we have trainings and so on and so forth. So I'm saying this for people that might want to join us too. You're free to do so. Please drop it in the comments. We are going to reach out to you and you're welcome. You're welcome. So today's training would be on turning your story ideas into a profitable script. And we have Peter Cobham to do justice to this topic today. So I'm just
You're
going to be
welcome.
reading out his
What an
profile
introduction.
first of all. I'm just going to be reading out his profile first of all, and then we delve into the lessons themselves. So, Peter Cobham is a
All right.
film and media professional with over a decade's experience preferring value in the creative industry. His experience spans line production of over a dozen cinematic and digital films, screenwriting, storyboarding, film education, and digital content management. So, with all I've read, you know that you're definitely going to be having a swell time learning today with Peter Cobham teaching
See,
us.
see
you know,
whining.
so
See whining.
no, please, it's not whining.
All right.
All
Thank you very
right,
much.
so I think we just go. Okay, you were saying something.
I said, thank you very much. Oh.
You're welcome.
The whining too
I
much.
was also, okay.
All right.
I was also
So,
apologizing for the darkness around here. There is no lights, and the weather is somehow they just took the lights, I think, because of the weather. So please manage
mm,
this whole dark room. But we
I
just
understand.
all right. Thank you very much. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So, before I start asking you the questions I have prepared here, do you have anything to say, Peter, before we just go into it fully?
Um, I think I would reserve that for when we are done. I
All
wanted to
right.
talk about when we were on the group yesterday, something I posted regarding creatives being a chain which has held this country together for so long, and
Okay.
many of us might not realize it. But as I said, based on that research I did, I came across going back to the days of theater where we had the theater groups, Herbert Ogunde and the rest, even
Yeah.
down to Finn Kalani and
Moving
all those
forward.
things. And you realize that at every instance, Nigeria always had this. There was always that depression. It's always been there, but somehow we've been able to persevere because there was always something which we had that kept us together. I don't want to use the word it made us not or made us ignore what the problem was, but no, it at some point it inspired us not to be depressed, not to succumb to those emotions or those circumstances or those situations, but giving us an opportunity to thrive. It was also another opportunity. It was also a platform that gave people hope that if this person could, for example, if success can accomplish this in this field, and there's a guarantee that I can go there in this field too because I believe I have something to contribute because she gave me something to believe in. So and going from that till now, I am confident that I unapologetically saying it that without creatives, I guarantee you Nigeria would have Otitobe a long time ago. A
Okay.
long time ago.
Wow. That's a great perspective. Thank you so much. I really love your
Yeah.
points. Thanks a
Sure.
whole lot. Okay, so we're just going to go straight to the questions. I have about 7 questions lined up for you already. But
Only
when
me.
you're done answering these questions, when we are done or you're done answering these questions, we're going to be taking questions from the people watching. So if you have any
No problem.
questions in the course of this training, please write them down so that when Peter is done answering them, you can always ask him and he answers you. Yeah, thank you so much. So let's just go straight into it. The first question I have
All
for
right.
you, Peter, is we had this session
Mm,
earlier and network issues and all of that. We had to reschedule to today, which is what we are doing now. You already answered this
all
first
right.
question, but for the sake of those who would maybe have difficulties tracking the other videos from the other live
All
sessions,
right.
we're just going to start all over so that we have it in one place. So for that reason,
Okay.
we'll start with number one again. And it's what are some of the important writing and marketing techniques needed to make a profitable script?
Mm, hmm. Um, I remember when you asked this question, and I said one of the things you need is basically. Let me start from here. As a script writer, I don't want to be using that word script writer because, as I said before, if you use script writer, it cuts across all scripts. Whether you are doing music videos, theater drama, screenplay, that's for film, or play text. So I'll just say let's just stick. I will stick to screenplay. So having to make a profitable screenplay, techniques that things that you need to have is um, knowledge. You
Mm,
cannot go anywhere without knowledge. And I always say, um, knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge
mm,
is power, and that's where you see it. Because with the right informations, you know how to make the right applications. What are those techniques? Premise. Your premise must be precise. It must be direct. It must be able to. When I mean direct, it must be able to hit the point of whatever it is you're trying to address with your screenplay. Sussex, are you still with me? Because I can't see you.
Yes, I'm very much with you. I'm trying to get my pen so I can also take down notes. So I'm still with
All
you.
right, no problem.
Yes.
And yes, your premise is one of them. Then, most importantly, your story. That your story must be impactful. It must be dramatic. What I mean by it must be dramatic, it must have those ingredients, necessary ingredients which you need or which are necessary or required to make a story media worthy. Now, what I mean by media worthy is it being able to be showcased or broadcasted across media streams. When I say media streams, I mean all the ones we have available. And at the same time, when I say media worthy, I mean in terms of it being talked about. Because the difference here is, I'm going to digress a bit. I know about Nigeria, but other countries, when you do a movie or a theatrical play, once it's done, curtains closed, there's the review, and then there's a critique. So that's the essence of the media word itself. People talk about it. What I mean by that, is it memorable? Simple and short. Is it something that you would see? And then in the next 10 years, I'll say success. And they'll not say, yeah, and I'll be like, I might just recite a hymn or a song. I will just hum from that movie. And I'll be like, yeah, I remember that's the film. Does your screenplay have those things? Those are the good. That's what I mean by, is it dramatic? Is it media worthy? Is it interesting? What is it able to capture the viewer's attention from beginning, middle, and the end? Those are some of the things you need to have at your for a very, very profitable screenplay. Those are the techniques I mean you need to have. I also know how to you need to know how to create your plots properly. That's the sequential arrangement of events in the screenplay. Like, how does this one lead to that one, and then what's your conflict? Is it something that is it watered down, or you just throw it in there because for the sake of throwing it in there? And when I mean by conflict is disagreement between one or two people within a story. And it always comes about when one character has a desired need or want, and then there's something or an opposing force, which could be either yourself. It could be an inter-conflict. It could be an intra-conflict rather. That's between you. There could be an inter-conflict that's between you and someone else, or it could be something else entirely, which you can say is supernatural conflict. That's between you and an entity that is just beyond the physical. So yeah, then I also want to talk about your dialogue. Dialogue is very, very important because it helps to drive the narrative of the story. Is your dialogue is it mechanical? I'm not saying it can't be conversational. What I'm trying to say is there will be certain aspects of causalities between your dialogue, meaning I say something, you respond. That's the essence of cause and effect. What's by causality? Not just because I put it in there, and then by the time we look at your screenplay and you're like, we can't see your technique, we can't see the essence of wordplay, we cannot even identify like as you. There's no sense of novelty or creativity to it. It's lacking. It's lacking. So those are the techniques I believe you need to have. And then last and not the least is your theme. What's your central message? What are you trying to say? Are you just writing this thing because you feel like, oh, I'm gonna make I submit something, just make them pay me money? Or you're doing this because you understand that every screenplay is a blueprint to a movie production, and you want to just pass a message to the people with this because you feel, or rather, let me rephrase that, scratch that, you know that this is something that they need to hear. This is something they need to see. This is something that needs to be spoken about. This is something that needs to be addressed. This is something that we need to take into cognizance because we have slept or overlooked or ignored it for a long time. Those are the techniques I believe you need to have for a profitable screenplay.
Wow. Thank you
I believe
so
I've done
much.
justice to your number one.
Yes, you have. You really have. And I also took down notes. I'm hoping that those people watching would also be taking down notes because these things are really, really informative and insightful. Thank you so much for those answers. So I have number two, and I remember that when I asked you this question the last time, you said that you've never sold a script or something like that. I asked for your experience selling your first script, and you said you never sold a script. So I'm going to ask you again. You were explaining something actually, so I'm going to ask again. Can you tell us your experience selling your first script? You said you had to produce the you were told to produce it or something like that.
Okay. My very first script, as I was saying then, was off the heels of me coming right off being a graduate, and then that space between me going for service. So a friend of mine, Ebuka Ifebunso, he suggested that this script is that you wrote for your project is just too good for you to just let it just be a project alone. Like, it's too rich. Sell this thing. and by then I didn't even know we used to sell scripts, because what we did, myself, back in school, Ebuka and Florenda and a couple of other friends, what we'll do is we would gather together. Florenda was a scriptwriter. I was either going to do continuity or directing, or I was assisting, or I would act, and then Ebuka would direct. So we'll gather those things, come together, and then we'll shoot. That's the way we always did it. So he had the experience with all those techniques and all those stuff in terms of selling scripts. I never produced back then. So he suggested it, and I said, okay, fine, that's a good idea. I didn't think of it in this way. Okay, fine, because we were in Jos, so, and Ebony was in Lagos. So I said, okay, fine, let me give them a call. I called them up, and they were like, oh, good to hear from you, this and this, blah, blah, blah. I said, all this one format. Let me get to the point. Olga, madam, I won't send my script. I said, okay, fine. What's the script about? I said this. Next thing, upon all that talk, the next thing she just said, well, I regret to inform you that right now we've stopped accepting scripts. We stopped buying scripts. So what you can do is you can take the liberty of shooting it, and then when you've shot it, you can then bring it to us, and then we will now we will buy it from you. If you see the question mark that was just firing all over my head, like, do you like the script there? On my mind, I'm like, do you know what this thing will cost? Because this was a sci-fi fantasy script. It wasn't the regular stuff with. It took a whole lot of world building, and I said, wait, that was 2015, 16. I can't imagine what that thing would have cost now compared to how much dollar is to naira now. When I looked at it, this baby not serious. I just cut the call. But since then, it's been opportunities to meet with people, and then they will have scripts, and then I perform. Either I act, or I produce, or I play a role one way or the other. I never really took script writing seriously to the point where I wanted to sell it. I always took it seriously to the point where I wanted to direct it. Yeah, that's it. But these days, it's a case of, if someone comes up to me and say, oh, you're a script writer? Yes. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
You have a script? No. Do you want us to write a script? You want to? I can write a script for you. Do you have a story? And then they'll say yes. I say, tell me your idea. And then they'll give me the idea, and I say, okay, fine. Let's do a story conference, and then we build the story together, and then I write the script, and that's how the story goes, or rather, that's how the cookie crumbles.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah. All right. So, the next question I have here is, and this question is actually really helpful to even others who are not creatives. As okay, I don't think is there any writer that isn't a creative? But anyway,
no.
Okay, exactly. So, even if it's not screenwriting, even if it's not screenplay, even if it's copywriting or whatever kind of writing at all, I believe writers experience writer's block from time to time and all of that. So, how do you deal with writer's block when trying to put together a profitable script? How do you as a person do, and how do you think others can deal with this writer's block?
Honestly, there is no hard and fast rule to dealing with writer's block. When it comes, it comes. Everybody will most people want to tell you, start fasting and praying. I don't know whether that works, or one thing or the other, but the truth is, when you're there, when you arrive, when you have writer's block, the most important thing I usually do, or I tell most people, is just let it be. Leave it. Just leave it. Don't touch it. Do something else. And it's always surprising that once you're doing something else, and your attention is not basically on the script, and then your brain is now focusing on something else. The beauty is the way the mind works is there's a name for it. I can't just remember. It's not there's a name for it, whereby the brain is actually able to multitask at the point where you're working on something, and at the time you can't really figure it out, but you're doing something else, but the brain is still finding its way to solve that problem. And then before you know it, it just clicks. So what I usually advise people is, once you get there, don't force it, because the more you force it, the more it stays. There's nothing you can do. You're there. do something else. Aaron Sorkin, yeah, Sorkin, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. What he usually does is whenever he reaches that kind of stage, he says he does something new. He doesn't touch the script, he just leaves it, he does something new. He either takes a shower, yeah, complete shower, put on new clothes, then he returns to it. Or he does something else and just let it be. And you notice that when you come back to that story, you those missing gaps or missing blocks, you're able to fit them properly. I understand the question is coming not just from the fact of what do you deal with writer's block. As creatives, we are always bound by time, and we're always responsible and accountable to someone. So in a situation where you're called to write a script, for example, a screenplay, for example, and then you're given a time frame to write to this point and that period, and then you experience writer's block. I know this is where that question is coming from. So what do you do in that situation? I know many of you that are watching, I know that's what you are waiting for. So let me answer it. It's still the same thing. Let it be. The where you guys are concerned when I say let it be, now be like, so as time they go, waiting I go 30%, say I get writer's block. No. What you do is try to manage the situation. It's called damage control. Now, what you do is you can try and appeal and say, okay, fine, this is where you are with the story. This is where you're trying to, this is where you are. This is where you're trying to be, but there's a situation, you're trying to figure it out. Keep your employer in the loop. Keep them informed, or your producer. And most times, it's better not to always write alone. That's the beauty about creatives. You're never alone. You might start alone, but you're never alone. Try to find a way to work with people. You can get to a situation where you're writing a story and then you're there. Find someone that is a creative that you know, maybe your mentor that you trust, and let them know the situation of things, and they'll be in the best position to tell you how to go about it. They might even profile even solutions to where your story is and tell you, no, where you are, you're wrong. Because by the time you get to here, your character might not be able to accomplish that need. And then you see that will now affect someone else in the story. So you are not even reaching an end or a resolution. You're now coming to another plot point which you need to resolve again. So that's the problem. So when you get to all those junctions, so it's always best to either have a mentor, someone that you can confide in to help, that would always be willing to give you that time of day to say, okay, fine, let's hear. Yes, I'm fortunate enough because when I was always writing stories, I had people I could talk to, right? And they would help at that point. They will help. So I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, yes, you really have. When you talked about letting it be, that I think that's
All right.
really one of the first solutions anyone can, take or do or make, or
Yeah.
what's the word now? Because if you force it, like you said, you just make it worse. So you just have to let it be, because I mean you have no control over this thing at this time. There are ways to control it, but then it just comes. And thank you so much for your answers. They've been really helpful. Myself, I'm also taking down
You're
notes. And
welcome.
again, I'll just suggest to you who is watching to also take down notes, because you can't always you don't think you always remember everything that has been said in this session. If you take down notes, you can always go back to these notes and refresh your memory on them. But if you just do without taking notes, you might end up forgetting the very important things. So on that note, we're just going to go straight to the fourth question, which is, this question is also quite interesting, because as humans, sometimes when we hear the word profitable, our mind just goes to money.
Now,
So I
so
want to know, we want to know, we want to know if profitable script is just about the money alone, or there are other things that make it profitable.
this is your question. Eh? All right. You're right. When we talk about being profitable, it goes way beyond money. And I want to believe that being profitability comes from two angles. But before we go to the comes from the angle of objectivity, and that's accomplishing goals. And under objectivity, for either whether you're a line producer, executive producer, screenplay writer, director, anyone behind the scenes, or even an actor yourself as a creative, and you are involved in writing screenplays, it comes from objectivity. And under objectivity, it's those two angles diverge into um, corporate and personal.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
sorry, I was waiting. I thought you wanted to write something, so that's why I paused. Okay, yeah.
No, no,
So
no, I'm
based
just
on
taking down
the
my notes. You're free to continue.
corporate, let me start from corporate. Corporate would be all right. So I would say from corporate, um, from the corporate angle, it's all about money, income. You obviously invest money, whether it's the executive producer or it's a film studio that invests money into a production, right? And you obviously want to get your return on investment on that production. So yes, it's about the money. Then that's for being corporate. Then also under the corporate, we have merchandising. Then if you remember earlier, let me explain. When I say merchandising, I mean able to make profit again, or rather income from the movie or the film which you've sold. That's in terms of, maybe say, when you say merchandising, we are talking about shirts, shoes, all those sort of products which have which advertises or talks about that screenplay which has been turned into a movie here. In terms of merchandising, can range from shirts, cups, uh, uh, um, what else? Toys, yeah, etc. And yeah, and those things help because if you remember when we talked about techniques, I mentioned something about media worthy. So that comes under merchandising too. Can that screenplay be profitable enough to generate those things in terms of return on investment? Then for personal, yeah, we are talking about moral standpoint, which is like you're writing your screenplay because in terms of your objective, what do you want to accomplish? You're not just picking up your pen or picking up your laptop to type words just because, even if you're just in the mood for it, even if it's just based on subjectivity, I want to believe there's an objective motive that drives you towards it. Like there's something you saw or something you experienced that you want to share. So that's why I talked about a moral standpoint, and you believe that this thing would help to conscientize one or two people beyond just yourself, who you're writing, who you hope would read the screenplay and then make it into a movie. Then your theme, your central message. What's the theme? What is the message you want people to see? Now, before I go any further, let me explain that moral standpoint and then the theme, so people don't get confused. Your moral standpoint is you personally, like let's say your worldview on life, and then you've seen that, okay, fine, this is something that you know that you've imbibed in yourself as a person, and then you want to pass it across. Then your theme is your central message. Central message being that when people have read the screenplay or when the movie screenplay has been turned into a movie, what is it trying to talk about in general? Not in general, like in a nutshell. Let's do that. In a nutshell, what is your movie about? Waiting did they try talk, that sort of thing. So I don't know. Do I have any other thing for personal? No, for personal. Ah, yes, there's something
Hmm.
I want to mention. Catharsis. Mm,
Hmm.
I love this thing. Yeah, catharsis. Yes, that's your personal objective. How do your viewers, when they've seen your screenplay seen it turned into a movie, and even before then, whether it's a executive producer or a line producer, a producer that raised it, or even your actors or your directors, what's the catharsis? Like catharsis will mean the purgation of emotion. For
Yeah.
example, if it's a tragedy, like how delicious is your tragedy? Is your tragedy so eventful and unique that when we see characters going through this experience of circumstance of suffering, that we can be able to empathize and we can see those intricacies, the way the plots are well weaved into those threads, those plot threads are well weaved, and bros, sister, only you. Now, wow. that kind of thing, that reaction, or is it comedy that when you see it, it's not so hilarious, but it is enough to provoke you to laugh, even when the script is not your front. You think about it and you're like, "Chai, well, that thing was crazy." That sort of thing. Those are your. I believe those are the personal objectives, and then those are the corporate objectives. So that I believe will make in terms of profitability the screenplay.
Profitability. Okay, so thank you very much. I think this has kind of corrected this notion that profitability has to always be about the money. So now you've said that in screenwriting, in screenplays, and all of this in film production, it's about the corporate and the personal objectives. You talked about the your ROI, getting your return on investment. You talked about merchandise, and then for the personal, you talked about your moral standards, the theme, catharsis, and all. So it has answered the question that
Yeah.
profitability is not only while the money is very important and is one thing that
Yes,
we
that's
look out
what
for,
about
of
money.
course. Yes,
Yes.
it's very important. We need it, but
Yes.
it's not only about that. That's not the only element that makes a script profitable, that makes a script be looked at as profitable. So
Mm.
we've handled that, and we just move on to the next question. It says, what are the necessary criteria that make a script fit to be on screen?
Necessary criteria. Let me answer this question. I don't. Let me answer this question like a line producer, not a screenplay writer. Yeah. So what are the necessary criteria? The necessary criteria are necessary criteria are not too different from the techniques because and as I said earlier, what's your premise? Your plot, character, dialogue, theme, conflict. All this accumulates into one word: craftsmanship, skill. How good is your wordplay? Are you able to do it in such a way that when we read it, we can't? I've read screenplays that I could tell that the person had all these things, right? But going expressing the idea into a story and a screenplay, there was a problem. You could tell that yes, this person is trying to get on the right track, but in terms of skill, it's lacking. The intelligence is not just there. And I've read screenplays where if that screenplay was not made into a movie, I consider that as a sin. I consider that as a sin. It's sacrilegious because it just had to be made. People just have to share in this experience because it was just that damn good. And at the same time, I've seen when all these things were applied, right? Right from the idea, the story, treatment, premise, everything. And you've seen the screenplay, fantastic. See the problem, execution, wahala. The director imprints his own ideas onto the whole thing. He doesn't follow the screenplay. He just does whatever he wants. And then, from my own experience, I will watch the movie and I can tell that, this screenplay makes sense there, but this director is off. He's off badly. And there are reasons for that. It could be finance, it could be artistic views, which diverge most times. But yeah, I believe those are the things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very, 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 very much. I'm just going to say at this point to the audience, to those watching, if you have questions, please just put them in the comment section so that when we are done with answering these already prepared questions, we'll just take your questions and ask Peter so that you can get answers to those questions. So please, you can start putting down your questions in the comment section. You don't have to wait till we are done. You can start now. Yes, so let's move on.
Right.
The next question I have, it
Uh-huh.
says, are there
Here we go.
specific stories that sell more or any story can sell depending on how it's written? You can give us instances, please. Are there stories that, okay, we say, if it's a story about a rich man and a poor lady, it's going to sell more. If it's a story about one thing, it's going to sell more in this area or this part of the world. If it's about this, it's going to sell more, and or it's going to sell on the global scale. And are there stories like that? I mean, okay, yes, there are stories that sell, but I'm saying, does it have to be that particular kinds of stories sell, or it just depends on how it's written? You know, I don't know. I don't know if you get my question. Are there specific stories that sell more than others, or it really just depends on how any story is written at all?
Hmm. Mhm. Okay. I would like to say yes, but the reality is no. Now, here's why. As I said earlier, there are many factors that contribute to whether a script is a screenplay when it's now turned into a movie is successful or not. Some of those factors will also include not just finance, but your audience. Who are you making these movies for? Who are the people that are going to see it? How are they going to see it? How is it going to be made available? That's what I mean by media. What is also all those things. And yes, there are some stories that sell more than others. There are some stories that sell more than others. It's unavoidable. I've seen stories that are trash, but how it sold, I don't know. And I mean
Hmm.
it like trash, and I don't know how it made money because I would watch it myself. So I have a friend, we talk about it, Uche Morikwe, we talk sometimes, and then he'll say, okay, have you seen this? I say, what? And then I'll go and watch it and I'll be like, eh? What did you see in here? He said, the stuff is this now. Da, da, da. I said, wait, is it you that is saying it, or it is because they reviewed it online and you saw it was good? He said, let's break it down. What's the story? I told him this is the story. See the characters, see the interaction between the characters. This thing cannot work like this. It's wrong. By the time we break it down, the movie by all standards. If we were to critique it, it's nonsense. But how it made money, it's not human knowledge that made that impossible because that one is a mystery to me. It happens. As I would love to say that yes, yes, originally when you asked the question, I wanted to say yes and no. That yes, there are some stories that will sell, there are stories that won't, because that's just the truth. It depends on how you write it. But as I said, I've seen stories that are lying, but how did they explode? My God. We forgive them. That's all we can say. So it's
Yeah.
it's
All right, all right. Thank you very, very much. I must say I'm having a very good time learning,
ah
and yes, thank you so much. So I have the
no.
last question from my own end. I'm hoping that people who may have questions would drop the question so that I can I can ask them I can ask them to you on their behalf. Or yes. So the last question I have for you, Peter, is how can script writers pitch their profitable scripts to producers?
Mm, how? Most importantly, first things first is I believe we've already addressed the essence today, the aspect of knowledge. You finding this, you must first know how to write a screenplay. Whether you want to go to the Academy of YouTube, what I mean by academy, I'm not saying there's an Academy of YouTube. What I mean is whether you want to go online and and learn how to write a script using this YouTube as a source to train yourself how to write a script, or you want to go to a website, you want to go to an academy, or you might come on board to places like African Creative Hub, Mojoke Institute of Arts, Royal Arts Academy, and so on. That's the first, because that's what we will look. Me myself, if you bring your script to me, that's what I'll look out for. You must know these things. That's one skill. Then we'll now get to the how. Layers with them. find a way to get in. What I mean by layers, network. Find a way to get in touch with producers. I'm sure you guys must watch movies. You must have seen get to the end credits, see their names. I'm sure when you watch a movie, there are movies that speak more to you than they do to others. Meaning, you have a emotional or beyond emotional investment into those movies. I remember when I was telling sources about that character investment, but we'll get back to that later. So yeah, so you must invest. We have be invested in those movies, and then at that point, then you know that okay, fine. You feel like this producer, you've done your background or due diligence on them, and say, okay, fine, this is someone I'm interested in, want to work with. Reach out to them via their emails, phone numbers. They are not anonymous. They are not they are not on another planet. They're on this earth. And then once you've done that, this is what you do. Because anyone that says to me, you better be careful here because this is the most important thing. One, once you've gotten your premise and your story, that's your synopsis, and your treatment, have your non-disclosure ready. Why? Because of intellectual property. Intellectual property theft. That's what I meant to say. Yes. We have entered law now. You better hear me well. Have a friend or someone or a colleague. Remember when we talked about creative, network with creatives, someone that you can speak to, a mentor. So see, it's not a joke. Get someone you know that you can advise you on this. I understand. You can start. People, I can even hear this from here. It's like people are even giving prayer points. There's no money. Slow down first. Relax. Calm down. Get the person to give you an advice on these things. I told you about a friend of mine, Uche Morikwe, we talk. I had an idea for a script I wanted to pitch to 343 Industries. It's a game industry owned by Microsoft in the United States. And I kept on rewriting that story over and over again. And when I did it, I wrote it the second time. I told it to him. And I told him that the story has reached to a point where there's another version of the story again. I was like, it's like the second one is even better than the first one because he knows the first one. And I was like, I want to pitch it to them. And then he said, okay, fine. How do you want to go about it? I said, I want to find them, their contact, maybe email or something. I actually did my research and I got their email. I got their game director, people from 343 Industries and everything. But he said, there's somebody he knows online, David Jenko or something like that. He said that you reach out to the guy on Instagram and talk to him about it. He's also into movies. He said he would reach out to you. He would advise you on what to do. And I reached out to him. When I did, he didn't get back to me immediately because he was kind of sick at that time. So when he got back to me, he told me what to do. He said, get your pitch deck ready. And when your pitch deck is ready, make sure you have a non-disclosure so that my mind didn't even go there. All I was just thinking about for myself was pitch deck, pitch deck, pitch deck, pitch deck. Oh, the story suite, the story suite, the story suite. When he said that, I said, God will bless you. My mind didn't go there. I have a friend, Cassandra. She's a producer, and she's also into marketing and distribution. She always mentions this thing, but I take it for granted. I just like, Cassandra, you're too serious about this thing sometimes. But when he said it, I was like, wow. This is something she's been telling me for 4 years. I just like, he did because maybe I was thinking about it like Cassandra is at my beck and call. I can call every time. But God forbid something like she's not in the country or I can't reach her. What happens? So these are the things you need to get. You need to have. Once your premise, your synopsis, and your treatment is ready, and I mean ready, like you can read it to a friend and everyone looks at it and like, okay, well, this is well documented and everything. It's something you can submit to a corporate organization. Then you get your pitch deck ready. When your pitch deck is ready, then your non-disclosure, then you can meet a producer, you can get in touch with them via email and or their contact, or you can try and set up a meeting, or you can find someone who knows them. That's always the best option, basically. And then the person can try and set you up with a meeting, and then you can have that conversation. Be careful what you say, because if you just tell them the whole thing, some people will just take what you've had and then you see it in the movie and start crying. Careful. So know what you say. Prep. Be prepared. Always be prepared. Take your time. Rehearse. Go through your points, how you want to present yourself, and then go ahead and talk to them, and then you see where it goes. And please, one more thing, do not be discouraged. Some producers might tell you they don't have the time, they don't have the bandwidth to carry on your project, but still take heart. It's not the only producer in the world. There's always keep going until you hit that mark. And I tell you that once you've hit the first, don't stop. Keep going to the second and the third, and it gets better from there. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yes. Thank you so much. I think I have something to add. I hope I'm allowed to add something.
Add.
Yes, please. So I remember there was this event I was in or something, a training, and the person said we're trying to pitch to producers. You should try to know the producer you're trying to pitch to, and if what they do, their works tally with what you have written. For
Yes.
instance, if you've written a romance screenplay or
Romantic. Yeah.
romantic
Script.
screenplay, yeah, you want
Yeah.
to pitch to producers who actually produce movies like that. You don't want to
Yeah.
pitch to people who do thrillers or stuff like that. So you need to actually research on this producer and know is it the kind of work that he does. Let me know if I can pitch to them. So I think that's another tip you can just take note of when trying to pitch to producers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're very right, because Christopher Nolan usually says, know where you're good at,
Yes.
because you don't. Miles Monroe says you don't need to do everything. Everybody thinks you need to do everything. You don't need to do everything. Know what you're good at. Robert Greene will, in his book The Mastery, always talk about find what it is you do exceptionally well than others, and then push yourself to doing that thing in such a way. And then Miles Monroe will say you do that thing in such a way that when no one else thinks of anyone when it comes to that particular thing you do. So that's that's what you need to focus on. If you are an expert in writing sci-fi, build yourself in it, train yourself, look for books, look for opportunities, get a mentor, someone who you know that can give you that you can leverage on their experience and their knowledge to build yourself. Because whether I like it or not, everything we have in this world is to share. That thing you're doing, someone is going to come and look at you one day and say, "Sir, I'm a big fan of yours. I do this and do this and do that. Would you like to?" And like, yeah, I know a lady by the name of Abena Amu. She's a producer as well. She wanted to go into screenplay because she had an interest in it, and she met with a friend, and he became her mentor, and he's a screenplay writer, and he mentored her in it, and damn, she's good, man. So that kind of thing, and it's always an impressive experience. See, I need to say this: do not be afraid be to learn. I know that the world sometimes might not seem like the place where it's willing to accept you because of what you do and the way you are. You don't need to change to fit in. That's just the truth. Be you. Those skills which you have, I guarantee you, there's someone out there that is hunting for you. Is hunting for you. It's just unfortunate that we are in a country where there is no platform where we can put ourselves out there. You get we can put ourselves out there, and then we can say, oh, based on so and so, this is this and that. Entertainers, creatives, we've been struggling for a long time. It's not our situation is not like um, aeronautic engineers, pilots, or even soldiers, or to say even pastors. Do you understand? Or even doctors that they go to school, they finish, and then man, once they touch in this place like this, someone they must accept them. You get that kind of thing. We have to always push ourselves to hit that mark, break that mark, set that milestone, break itself even more than once or twice, just so that the world can look at us and say, Omo, he's here. Tom Cruise started at acting at when he's 60 now, and he might have received almost all the awards, but it is now that he's really coming into that recognition that the world has really accepted that this is a person that at some point saved cinema. So it's tough, but don't give up, because we need you, and that's the truth. So I just needed to say that.
Wow, thank you so much, Peter. These words are really, really, really needed.
Yeah.
Yes, you said something about not changing to fit in. This is so
No,
important. As
no, don't do that.
creatives, you shouldn't try to start changing yourself or what you know how to do. I mean, what you really want to do, just so
Yeah.
that you can fit in. Thank you so much for the words, Peter.
You're
We are
welcome.
so grateful. And there are some questions here I think about two questions right now. So I'm just going
Right.
to say now that if you're in the audience, please ask your questions, whatever questions you have, maybe before the session even started, or before you joined the session, or even while the session was going on, whatever questions you have, please put them in the comment section. I'm going to um, ask them on your behalf. All right,
Okay.
so somebody, Ola Agbetu Kodri, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Please pardon me if I did not. But he's asking, how easy is it to make scripts? Sorry, how easy is it to make scripts from a book or movie production? That's his question.
It's not easy now. Why do I say it's not easy? Because first and foremost, you're taking someone's intellect, so you're taking someone's intellectual property, someone's brainchild, and then you're trying to adapt it into a screenplay. So first and foremost, you need to get the person's permission. See, we have entered law again, so this entertainment law. So you need to get the person's permission, right? So that it's not there's no form of plagiarism or infringing on people's intellectual rights or property. And then once you're done with that, and then it's been approved, then from there you can start adapting. The aspect of adaptation is just saying, I am transforming something from its original state to another state. So you're taking the story itself, because that's the thing, you need to understand what the story is, the theme, and so on and so forth. And then you can now say, okay, fine, I want to change it into a screenplay. So to answer that question of easy, it's not easy because of the certain procedures you need to go through in order to make these things seamless. As I said, meeting the person, getting his approval, making sure there's a contract binding in that agreement, and then once it's been approved, you move on from there. And the easy I guess that will be how to make it easy. That would be how to make it easy. But in terms, if your questions is still going to, okay, now that I've done all those, now how do I now go about breaking it down? Well, you have to understand the book or the novel itself. Like, what's it talking about? When was it written? What I mean by what's it talking about is, what's it trying to address? What's the story? They have to understand the time period. When was it written? Was it in the early 60s, late 60s, early 70s? Is it the Gen Z stuff? Is it millennia? Is it pre-millennia? All those sort of things. From there, you'll be able to identify all those cultural cues which were like laid in there like breadcrumbs within the story, which you yourself, when you're adapting, you won't miss it. All those sort of things. So once you take cognizance of all those things, I believe it will make the what do you call it, adaptation of your script more seamless. I hope I answered. I hope I answered the question correctly, or to
Okay.
Ola's satisfaction.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. So Ola, please let us know in the comments if you already have your answer. But he's asking another question anyway. He says, who do you seek non-disclosure from when it comes to book to movies? The author, or sorry, the publisher or the author? Okay, I'll take that again. He says, who do you seek non-disclosure from when it comes to book to movies? The publisher or the author? So,
Who are you seeking non-disclosure for? The non-disclosure should be between you and the intended individual or creative or writer, author, or who you are trying to adapt their work. It has to be between them, because the author and the publisher need to be aware that this is what is going on. For example, it's just like saying you're the screenplay writer of a script, right? And then there's a producer who you sold your script to. Good. Now, if someone wants to now take that your screenplay that you've written, right, and then it's now already a movie, and adapt it or even create a sequel or whatever, there needs to be um, prior contact between that person, that screenplay, and the producer before that thing is now going to be changed by someone else entirely into whatever. Because if the author and the publisher are not in agreement of you adapting, you can't do anything. No? So it's actually the author and producer. It can't just be the author alone. But in most cases, you would find where you would just meet the author, and then the author might tell you you don't need to meet the publisher. And in most cases, you will even find when you meet the publisher, and the publisher will tell you don't need to meet the author. Don't fall into those kind of traps. Make sure you always go with someone who has legal experience or legal advice, and we always tell you that it's better to meet the two, so that once those things are signed, you have both signatures there and it's binding. Not so you don't have a situation where somebody is saying, "Oh, yeah, I give the contract to the author and it's there," but the publisher might now start saying one or two and say, "Oh, it will sue you and sue them because he was not made aware, and then profits for this was made and it wasn't put into this." Why him already has a contract with the author, and the contract with the author says that if any work will be adapted into so and so, he has so be careful. Seek legal advice and make sure it's between the author and the publisher.
Okay, wow. Ola, I'm hoping that your questions have been answered. I'm hoping, can you let us know in the comments if your questions have been answered? And also to others, if you have questions, kindly put them in the comments so that you can have answers to them. But in the meantime, I'm just going to be thanking Peter. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. It's been a very good 1 hour. Thank you very much. So while we wait for a few more minutes to see if there are other questions, would you have
All right.
anything? Do you have anything you might want to say? Any last words and stuff like that? Okay, sorry. Before then, Ola says, thanks, Mr. Peter, for your insightful lecture. So I'm hoping that his questions have been answered since he didn't
Right.
say anything opposing that. All right.
All right.
So any last
What I would love to
words?
say.
Yes.
I already mentioned this earlier when I said creatives, we are the chain which has held this country together. So why I'm saying this again is so that you can understand your value. It's not about comparing yourself to crude oil. You're human. Human resource is invaluable. Understand this. When you're involved in any transaction, it's not about how much you're going to be paid. We can never pay you for your knowledge, your skill, time, and energy. That's the honest truth. It cannot be paid. We can't pay for. We can't give you any compensation or reward for it. But we can always try. And most importantly, please, do not stop persevering. Do not stop being who you are. You are unique. You are awesome. There is nothing that should be an obstacle to you. All these things that you just see in your way, they are just hurdles. If you need a place where you know your skill and your talents are not being appreciated, well, African Creative Hub, we welcome you without any hesitation. So I believe you can just come on there. I believe Success will drop that content or find a way to do it, maybe on the YouTube page, and we will just do what we can to encourage you and then put you out there. It's not over till you decide it's over. So keep fighting the good fight. Rocky, Sylvester Stallone from Rocky Babu will say, keep punching. So same to you to keep punching. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, thank you so much. I am so
You're
happy
welcome.
that I
You're
got
welcome.
to learn too while doing this. Thank you so much, Peter.
You're
I'm
welcome.
so grateful. We are so grateful. I'm sure that even those who would come later to watch this session would be very glad that they did, and those who are
Yeah.
currently watching would be glad that they are doing so too. So, thank you very much. I think this is the end of this session. Yeah, so yeah, thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Yeah,
Take care. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
thank you
It's
more.
an honor.
Thank you more for being with us. Thank you.
All right.
All right. So guys, thank you so much for joining us today in this session. I'm I'm quite sure that you learned something today on how to turn your story ideas into a profitable script. So if you didn't join us from the very start, you can always go back and watch it from the beginning to see some of the, or to regain some of the things you might have lost before now. Yes, so we have come to the end of today's session, and Like I said earlier, this training is coming to you from the African Creative Hub, which is an initiative of the IP Business Capital. At the African Creative Hub, our mission is to empower African creative entrepreneurs with the needed capacity and skills that they need to tell authentic African stories. We also have a community where we collaborate, we have fun, we learn, we discuss. It's very much fun in this community. We have people that train us and stuff like that. So if you want to join the community, a way to join would be communicated to you soon. You can also follow the IP Business Capital. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're not subscribed yet, so that you can always get updates whenever we upload these things. Thank you very, 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 very much for being part of today's session. And we thank Mr. Peter too. His session was so insightful and educating. Thank you very, very much. See you in the next lecture or the next session. Bye.